Okay, hey everybody. I just wanted to make a quick video to see if I could help anybody with the ABGs. I know personally how frustrating it can be when you don't understand something, and even worse when everybody else seems to understand it but you still don't. So I tried really hard to understand the ABGs and actually taught my husband them the other night. And he actually learned it within like 10 minutes. So I was like pleasantly surprised on how well this way works to help people understand, even if they don't really have a medical background like he doesn't. So I thought that I was a pretty good teacher. So anyway, I just wanted to see if I could help anybody. And that way we can go through this together and then in turn do good on our exam. So yay! Okay, so the first thing I use is this diagram here. So when you go to take your test and you have a scratch piece of paper, I want you to write down the numbers on the number line and these little, you don't have to be super artistic because I'm not. So instead of the lungs, I'm just going to write an L, and then instead of the kidneys, I'm going to write a K. So there you go. Easy. You don't have to you don't have to draw lungs or kidneys because I wouldn't be able to. So as long as you know the numbers and put them on the number line and know which way is acid, which way is base, and you will be golden. So there are 3 steps to this method, and we'll go through them together with 3 different scenarios. So the first scenario, I'll give you the numbers. That way you can write them down. The pH is 7.25. The PaCO2 is 55. And the HCO3 is 25. Okay, so step number 1, we're going to take a look at that pH. So the pH is 7.25. Okay, so let's take a look at our number line. So the pH's range is 7.35 to 7.45. So 7.25 we know is below 7.35. Okay, it's somewhere down in here. So we know that the pH is acidic. Okay, boom, done. Step number 2, we need to match the pH with a partner. So if our pH is acidic, we know automatically that our partner is going to be in the acidic range as well. So taking a look at our PaCO2, it is 55. So if we know the numbers, we can see that 55 is over 45, and that in turn means that our PaCO2 is acidic as well. So there we go. We have our match. So looking at our diagram, L is for lungs. So then we know that the first part of our answer is respiratory acidosis. Okay? Now let's get our HCO3 on the number line. It is 25. So I'm going to say like right in there. It is within normal limits, okay? So now that we have everything on the number line, step number 3 is figuring out whether it is compensated, uncompensated, or partially compensated, which that can be the tricky part. The first thing we're going to do is take a look at that pH. Is the pH within normal limits? Okay, so looking at this problem, no, the pH is not within normal limits. So that means that this is uncompensated. So the full answer for this would be respiratory acidosis uncompensated. Okay, I hope that makes sense. We'll go on to our next one. Okay. The numbers are pH 7.43, PaCO2 is 43, and HCO3 is 33. Okay, so remember step number 1. Let's look at that pH. pH is 7.43. Okay, so hey, that is actually within normal limits. We are pretty close to base, but we are within normal limits. So we're going to call that within normal limits, but since it is closer to base, we're going to take a look at our partner, and we're going to see if we have anything that's close to base too, and we're going to call that our partner. So PaCO2, He is 43, so he's within normal limits too, but looking at the number line, he is not our match because he is acidic, okay? So that's not our match. HCO3, he is 33, which is way out here. He is basic. So boom, we have our match. So the first part of this answer would be metabolic alkalosis. Okay, awesome. Okay, then there comes that tricky part. Step number 3, is it compensated, uncompensated, or partially compensated? So first thing we need to do is look at that pH. Is that pH within normal limits? Well, taking a look at the number line, yes, it is within normal limits. Even though it's pretty close to being not within normal limits, it is within normal limits. So we would call this fully compensated. So the full answer for this question would be metabolic alkalosis fully compensated. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And we'll go on to our last one. Okay, pH is 7.32. PaCO2 is 55. HCO3 is 42. All right, so remember step number 1 is look at the pH. So is our pH acidic or basic or within normal limits? So 7.32 is just a little bit. He's not within normal limits. He is acidic. Okay, so now we need to find our partner. PaCO2 is 55, so he's hanging out here. He's acidic, all right? So there we go. We have our match. So the first part of this answer would be respiratory acidosis, okay? Now let's take a look at the HCO3. He is 42. Woo, he is way out there, way basic, okay? So he is not within normal limits. He is way basic, okay? So now that we have everything on the number line, step 3, compensated, uncompensated, or partially compensated, okay? So let's take a look at that pH first. Is he within normal limits? No, he's not, okay? So we know right there that it's not fully compensated. But let's take a look at our outlier. Our outlier is the HCO3. Is he within normal limits? No, he's not. He is way basic. So that means that we know that the kidneys are trying to compensate and trying to bring that pH back to normal limits. So we know that the kidneys are trying to do their job to bring that pH back to normal limits. So that means that this would be partially compensated. Okay, so the full answer for this would be respiratory acidosis partially compensated because the kidneys are very basic and they're trying to bring that acidic pH back to normal.